Uh,
Hi, everybody. It's Jean Humbrecht with Humbrecht Law, criminal and traffic defense attorney in Manassas, Virginia. Welcome to my semi weekly local business spotlight. Today, I am joined by a very special and esteemed, very knowledgeable guest, Andrea Morisi with Farrell and Croft. I'm sure everybody knows Andrea's name and the name Farrell and Croft in Manassas. Andrea specializes in estates, and I'm going to turn it over to Andrea because that's probably a horrible way to introduce what she does. I'm going to turn it over to Andrea to tell you all a little bit about what she does and about herself. And while she's doing that, I'm going to share the video in my different Facebook groups. And I just invite you all who are watching to ask us questions as we're going. Any questions you have about wills, trusts, estates, powers of attorney, anything that we talk about, or if we don't mention something and you have a question, just type it in the chat. So Andrea, I'm turning it over to you.
okay, thanks, Jean. Happy New Year, everybody. I know it's a little bit late into January, but I still feel like we get to say that. Um, so I'm Andrea Morisi, and I'm a partner with Farrell and Croft here in Manassas. And for about the last 17 years, I've been doing estate planning. And and there's also another side of it of what happens when you don't do estate planning. So, and I deal with that side as well. But estate planning is indeed doing wills, trusts for individuals who feel that's something that would be appropriate for their family, beneficial for their family. Powers of attorney, and those can be very varied. We have very broad powers of attorney that we can do. It can be from limited to selling your house to doing everything for you, a general durable financial power of attorney. So the whole spectrum. And then they also have powers of attorney for medical. So making decisions about your health care, where you live, if you're in a nursing home, those kind of things. And then later about the end of life decisions, the advanced medical directive aspects of those powers of attorney. I work with folks on those as well. And then we have another limited power of attorney, called for final wishes. And this is sort of a carve out in our statutes, thanks to our friends in the funeral industry. They got a special permission to have powers of attorney that go beyond. Usually these die with you, but they've now allowed them to be set to have somebody do your final wishes. So make arrangements for cremation or burial, pay expenses, and make those decisions. Sometimes folks have differing opinions in the family, and so you want to pick somebody who's going to respect your wishes. And that's over all of the things I've been just talking about. So when we look at it as a spectrum, we're starting with powers of attorney. So that's while you're alive, documents that can assist you. And then when somebody passes, then we're looking at your will. The trust would come more into effect. And then, of course, we have the burial and those kind of things. Probate is the process after somebody dies, if they need to do a court supervised process. I assist with those. I assist with trust administration. And then if I wasn't doing enough, I have the side that's the unplanned. Now, for some people, there's no way they can plan. For instance, if you have a child who's disabled and not going to be independent, when they turn 18, the parents can petition to become their guardian, so legal guardian. Doing the same thing they was doing as parents, but now that the child is 18, they get the title of guardian. So, but then there's individuals who could plan, like older adults, but if they don't and they need guardianship because they've now gotten situations like dementia or other, or even like traumatic brain injuries, things that are quite disabling, uh, and they're not able to execute powers of attorney, then the court will appoint a guardian for them. And those cases also often involve somebody managing the financial affairs for the individual. Um, Sometimes people do plan, but the best laid plans go astray. So say they name people and they all died, because mom lives to 99 and outlives a bunch of people that she named, like siblings. Then sometimes the court has to step in and fix that since mom can no longer do it or the person can no longer do it. So it's a lot of stuff. It kind of all ties around what do you do with your stuff? Who's going to take care of your money and your things, your house, your car, your contents? It all centers around that, and then has some personal aspects like the medical power of attorney.
Mhm. Well, I
So,
mean, there's a lot that you mentioned, and there's no way we can get to all of it in this live. But I want to also invite you to tell us what might be the most important things for us to know that people don't think about. But I want to start with what happens if people don't plan. Um, let's say somebody let not even somebody thinks somebody's young and healthy. Um, they don't have a will. Maybe they end up they've got some assets. Maybe they end up getting married. Maybe they end up having kids. Maybe they don't. But the point
sure.
is, they don't have any of these documents in place, and they pass away with nothing planned. What happens?
So the law provides for that scenario. And the decision is can be the individuals. And again, maybe they never make a decision, but if they do make a decision, it could be that I don't need to plan because the law provides for it. And what the law provides is indeed that if an individual passes away and doesn't has not done anything, then the law says, okay, first and foremost, your assets are going to go to your spouse. Well, if you don't have a spouse, then we're going to go to your children. Well, this comes up a lot in divorce situations. So we don't have a spouse because we're divorced, but we have children, and now we have minor children inheriting estates, and that does get complicated.
Mm,
Of the it could be they've been left their parents' 401k or retirement accounts, and life insurance through work, and then of course the other assets that they have. Again, your vehicle, your home, and bank accounts, et cetera. So that can become complicated, but the law does provide that that would be the beneficiary. Then if we don't have any of that, if we don't have what we would call descendants, so we don't have the spouse and the children, grandchildren, et cetera, we go up the tree. So
mm,
now we go to your parents. So if I passed and I was single and didn't have children, it's going to go to my mom and dad. Maybe that's fine with the individual, but maybe mom and dad is gone. It's going to go to my siblings. So this whole tree is defined out, and we go for a great deal to find the beneficiaries. We go to the grandparent level and reconstruct the family from that level in order before we say there's nobody. So
mhm,
generally, there's going to be somebody, uh, and sometimes they're unexpected. That they didn't, their distant cousins end up getting it. They didn't hardly even know the person, but they end up being a beneficiary. We call them laughing heirs. They end up benefiting without having ever known they were doing that. If you don't plan, that's fine. The law has planned for you. It dictates, and we follow those rules. But really, I would say more so than having a will, and everybody would be like, oh, you should have a will. But really, what you need to have is powers of attorney. Powers of attorney are the most basic thing. And this is while you're alive but unable to manage your affairs, you have nominated a trusted person to take over and pay things and to handle things for you.
mhm,
So that when you have that person, then they can get over your bank account and take care of your bills, take care of you in the hospital, etc. But if you don't have that, we have to go to court. We'll have to go to court and get guardianship and conservator, and that can be expensive and lengthy, and somewhat of chewing away at your estate for legal fees and court costs. But the will, a family member could step forward. They'll say, I'll be in charge. If nobody else objects, the court will appoint them. And then they administer the estate and distribute it to the heirs, hopefully doing it properly. I have a case right now where they seem to have forgotten there was a mother's side of the estate. They just gave
mm,
it to the father's side of the estate when the woman passed and had no, I think she had either divorced or outlived her spouse and had no children. So cousins stepped up, but only give it to that side. So bring it back. It's supposed to go over both sides because you got two parents.
mhm,
So if anything, I'm saying like when I said, "Hey, it's going to go to your siblings, your parents, your cousins, your kids," if any of that's like, "Oh no, I don't want that," that's when you have to plan.
mhm,
If you're concerned about the what if I pass and my assets are going to go somewhere, that's when you should plan, because I want them to go particularly. Some people have charitable interests that they want to be respected. As I tell people, nobody's guaranteed to get an inheritance. Anybody can disinherit anybody else, and just because you're a cousin doesn't mean you should get your cousin's estate. But but if you don't plan, that's what's going to happen. So I do encourage full planning, but I
Hmm.
would be honest with people that, you know, if you if it's a husband and wife and you got these kids and your kids are all fine, you can get by without having a will. You just haven't put anybody in charge. We know where the money's going to go, to your spouse, then to your kids. Um, so you take that risk. I don't force anything on anybody that they don't want. A lot of folks will go around saying, "Oh, you must have a trust." That was a mindset of sort of the 80s, and it was due to federal estate taxes being very low, meaning an exemption of your assets passing to your family was subject to a federal gifting law.
Hmm.
And when that was very low, people were trying to protect from having, I mean, the exempt level was very low. People were trying to protect against their families having to pay taxes. That exemption now in 2025 is nearly $14 million. dollars. So a lot of people don't need a trust to avoid paying taxes. They just don't have that asset level. So give
Hmm.
it away, not subject to estate tax. That law will reset at the end of this year. Uh, if Congress takes action, they could make it higher, they could make it lower, they could eliminate it entirely. If they do nothing, it goes to 6 million. So again, a lot of people don't have $6 million
Hmm.
to worry about. So I wouldn't worry about it for that reason.
Hmm.
But you could have a trust for various other reasons. Concerned about the health of the couple, husband or wife. Maybe one of them may be showing signs of early dementia or cognitive impairments. A trust can be helpful in that situation because oftentimes the caregiving spouse passes away before the spouse with the cognitive impairment. So with a trust, the trustee can change easily. Uh, you know, but powers of attorney can get the same effect. So it's not necessarily determinative. Trusts are also good if you have children who are too young or too immature to manage their assets. So a trust is a very good vehicle for that. Or, like I said, if you have somebody with a disability, we do special kinds of trusts called special needs trusts.
Hmm.
And that allows those individuals to continue receiving benefits like Social Security, disability income, and Section 8 housing, food stamps, whatever kind of benefits they're receiving. They can continue to have those, and Medicaid for their health insurance. They can continue to have that, but have the assets, have other assets segregated and preserved for those things that aren't covered by government programs. So,
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of facets. The law has become complicated. Like it's complicated in your Gene. I don't go to do criminal stuff because I don't feel like I know that that stuff. That's for you. So yeah, the same with estate planning. It's can be a bit complicated.
Yeah, I know. I'm certainly not even going to attempt to draft my own will and end of life documents. I don't even know if that's the right term, but something that you didn't mention that
Mm.
um, people might not even know, and people, I think that people don't like to think about death. Um,
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
but I mean, you need to have, and it's not all death, like you said, power of attorney. Like you could be in a bad car accident, and then or something can happen to you that you're not
Right.
planning out of nowhere, and then you can't make your own decisions yourself. And if you don't have these things in place, yeah, that it's, well, I don't know, you can address that, but
Well, the
what I,
court is gonna step in. The court is going to have to do something. And you can, I mean, but again, it doesn't even have to be around the conversation of death.
yeah.
You could be being relocated across the country and you're going to nominate somebody back here to sell your house for you. A limited power of attorney to sell real
Hmm.
estate.
Hmm.
It could be something as innocuous as that. Or it could be you're going to go on that round the world cruise for a year. Well, you got to keep things running back at the home front. And so you put a trusted person in charge of, making sure your house is secure and safe and your assets are fine and things are being done that need to be done.
Hmm.
So that, there can be good things
Hmm.
in using your powers of attorney, but there can also be yes, unfortunate situations. And you know what? We just don't know. Life is not laid out it's not always straight line. Unexpected things happen. People predecease that we never expected to predecease us. Or develop ailments and illnesses and that makes life difficult for them. And sometimes, I mean, you might be your brain might be fine, you might be have a lot of control, but maybe you don't have control of your body anymore. Maybe it's difficult for you to get out, and so it's more convenient to have
Mhm.
somebody who's a power of attorney, can do your banking and accompany you to doctor's appointments and be privy
Mhm.
to those kind of conversations, pick up your prescriptions, a whole variety of things we can use powers of attorney for. So, and we see, more and more uses of power of attorney. It used to be very limited because things were very limited in our lives. You'd had a bank account, you might have an investment account, you had your house, but now we've got all kinds of retirement accounts, pensions, all of these type of entities want to see a power of attorney. Some have
Mhm.
their own. Your financial advisor might have through the companies that they represent, like Schwab or Vanguard or Fidelity. They may have their own form. I always tell everybody, if you have your own form, your advisor tells you they have their own form, do it, because then they don't have to review it. If you come in with one I've developed, they might take 2 weeks to review the power of attorney, before they're going to give access to the individual.
Mhm.
So if you have things keyed up and planned, that's more helpful too. Sometimes, this conversation, Jean, is really all around planning. I
Mhm.
use somebody who likes to have control, likes to know what's going to happen in certain situations. You get your car inspected on time, when, different things are due, you stay on top of, your oil change schedule, that kind of control. Or they like, oh, I guess I'm due, oh, I just saw the sticker, it's expired, I better go get stuff inspected. So
Mhm.
you have folks in both camps.
Mhm.
But and some people don't plan at all. They don't have anything, don't even know where their assets are. It's a scavenger hunt.
Mhm.
Trying to find, do they have life insurance? Do they have this? Do they have that? And it used to be, you'd wait, watch the mail come through the mail slot or the mailbox, and you'd know what they have. Now we have a lot of stuff online. We can't
Mhm.
necessarily know. I have some people, dad died, they're living in the house. They don't know how the bills are being paid. Are they all set up for automatic? Because the lights are still on, but we don't know where the bill is being paid from. So, a lot of stuff you got to get behind, and organization helps. When you finish doing estate planning with me, I give you a book, which is a little bit more homework, but it does help you organize that information for the next, for the folks who need to take over. Like,
Mhm.
where are my bills? What are my bills? Who do you talk to? Who do you talk to about my retirement account? Am I a veteran? Do I have DD 214? If you're military, that's a military discharge paperwork, and that's your golden ticket to get you into a veteran cemetery and and VA hospitals. And so, that's important to your family to know where that document is. For some people,
Mhm.
it's an onion skin. My kids don't know what an onion skin paper is. You know, they're in their 30s. They never seen it. So how do we, get that organized for the next folks? Um, and also, phones. Your phone has a passcode on it. You know what the kids want your phone for? They want your pictures. They don't really care. I mean, they want to unlock it, maybe sell it, but they want your pictures in your Apple account. So leaving your codes to things like how to unlock your computer, how to unlock your phone, maybe some passwords to important websites. This is all more and more organization we need to have these days.
Mhm.
So. I had a lady who was in her 90s, and Verizon kept telling me she had a hardwired phone in her
Mhm.
house. Yeah, she didn't have a cell phone, and she went off to a facility, and I was selling her house, and Verizon kept telling me she's got a code. I'm like, well, I'm never going to find it from a woman with dementia, and I doubt she has a code. I don't know who would have put it on there. So what could I do? I just let the bill go unpaid until they finally figured it out.
Mhm.
That, excuse me, a tickle.
Yeah,
So,
I was actually going to ask you about passwords, but I mean that's a good point. If you don't have them written down, I mean, what do people do? Like what do you do?
You can file a petition to get Apple to tell you the code for Apple, but other things you might just have to forego it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, it can become very difficult. I have a gentleman who owns power of attorney. He's now living in South Carolina, and he still does his email and has an email address, and I can't get a lot of stuff he set up to go on email doesn't come to me. So I keep getting late notices, you haven't paid his credit card. And I'm like, yeah, because you send him the bill instead of sending it to me. Um, so there's a lot of tricky things that come up. I wish I could say it'd be real easy, it's a turnkey operation, but there are a lot of facets to it. Some
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
be very easy, but others, yeah. And all of this revolves around that you need trusted people. You're not, just because they're your child doesn't, if they have a poor relationship with their other children, you could be leading them to a disaster to put them in charge when the others are going to fight them on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I tell them in those cases, name a third party. You can name a law firm, you can name a bank, you could name, an entity like a Fidelity or a Vanguard. Now, those companies will evaluate whether they want to do that, be executor or trustee. Uh, but if those people can't do it, then we could go to court and get somebody else appointed. So I always tell people, be honest, be upfront about your family. Do not leave somebody in a really bad situation of trying to manage something with a lot of antagonism from other family members. Additionally, I also tell families, if you come in and you tell me that you want to disinherit somebody, then we pull the Band-Aid off and we disinherit them. I'm not one of these people who says leave them $10, because you know what? When you leave them $10, that's almost more insulting than leaving them nothing. Okay. They don't want to receive the $10. They make it impossible for the person to give them the $10. And then we have this frustration of what do I do with their $10, right? Which is ridiculous. So you know, if you don't want Bobby Jr. to get anything, then leave Bobby Jr. out. He gets nothing. Just say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe write him a letter as to why he's not getting anything, so that it doesn't have to be in a public record, but instead could be, you know, it could be conveyed to him privately.
Hmm.
So,
That's interesting.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question about the banks because I know the answer to this. Well, I think I do. Maybe I don't. Some people might not. If you pass away or you are incapacitated in some way, you can't take care of yourself basically,
Mhm.
um, and you don't have somebody that power of attorney, whatever, that can go access your bank account. What happens? How can anybody and how can they ever get to your
Right.
money if you don't have that in writing? Say you've
If
got
you're, yeah,
$50,000 in there, like
right. But well, if you're incompetent, then somebody, a family member or adult protective services or entity like a hospital or a nursing home can initiate a guardianship petition and a conservatorship. Guardian is over the person, conservatorship is over the money. And that person would then be allowed by court order to access your monies and pay your
mhm,
debts. And that comes up more frequently than you think. There are individuals who go to the hospital and are not deemed by those doctors to be incapacitated and not capable of planning their own discharge to
mhm,
another facility or even to home. And if they don't find any family, then the hospital or institution can start a guardianship case and have somebody appointed, and can be for the sole purpose of just discharging the person from the hospital because they don't have anyone in authority to take responsibility for the individual. So this comes up more than you think, and it's actually a subject that our courts are beginning to really recognize, that we have a lot of these cases coming, and they need to be more proactive. I think Virginia has a very good system for guardianship and conservatorship. It's not, as it's got some aspects that keep it from being abused, but that's not to say it couldn't be abused. But there was a movie a few years ago called something about I love you enough or I love you a lot or something. And it was in about an abuse of the guardianship and conservatorship system, which was an actual case from Las Vegas, in which a doctor and a lawyer sort of connived and got in cahoots. So when a doctor would see somebody was having, beginning signs of dementia and maybe didn't have any family members local, then they would get the lawyer to file for a guardianship case and a conservatorship case, and they would take over the people's lives. And the more you would fight it and saying, wait, I can do this, what are you doing? Or family would come and say, what are you doing? Why are you taking over my mom or dad? Then the lawyers and doctors would point to the people going, look how crazy they are. Of course that's why, because look at, they're crazy. Because of course you're incensed, by this. So um the movie, of course, was creative, but it really was a situation in which somebody really abused the situation, taking over people's lives, moving them out of homes, moving them into. We had a bit of it in the District of Columbia also. But our guardianship cases, when we file a case, the courts require two things. One is that the person get immediately appointed an attorney. And generally, we can ask for who we want that attorney. So if I'm initiating a case, I can ask for somebody to be that guardian or that attorney for the person who's going to be going under guardianship or conservatorship. But a lot of times we just let the court do it so that we're not biased. We're not
Mhm.
again, not getting into I'm always using you and you believe
Mhm.
me that this person's crazy, et cetera. But that person is then that person's attorney, that attorney. So
Right.
they represent that person. They tell the court that this is proper or not. The other thing is we need to tell family members. So we have to tell the children, we have to tell the siblings about this case, and they can come forward and say, "Wait, no, I'm their power of attorney. They gave me their forms years ago. Oh, we have somebody. Okay, then So sometimes we initiate these cases. Sometimes people improve in medical treatments, don't need it, or can execute a financial power of attorney, a general or medical power of attorney, and we dismiss the case. We go with the less restrictive means, which is a power of attorney. And so I see the process working, and I see it working appropriately. But it is a removal of rights, and so the court wants to be very protective. If I'm a judge and I'm removing something from somebody, I want somebody else giving me, that concrete support that that's the right thing to be doing. Um, and we've had cases where people have been financially exploited, and it becomes difficult to try to get a handle on the situation. If you start moving mom or dad around the Commonwealth or even to a different state, now we've got new challenges. You're not in our jurisdiction anymore for us to go after you. And we had that case where the befriended individual, moved the man out of assisted living uh, and really manipulated and took over all his money. It was a $200,000 plus embezzlement. But I can't do anything criminal about it because the main witness is an individual with dementia, so they can't really testify. So, um, so these things, planning is important, and hopefully your circumstances will work the way they should. That your family will step up, your family will be trustworthy and do the right thing by you. But sometimes, mom or dad dies, the surviving spouse remarries, that person isn't really, they're manipulative and do things. So I can't solve every problem, but I work hard at solving those I can and
Mhm.
helping folks. So.
Well, you mentioned a few minutes ago moving people out of hospitals and discharging and all that stuff.
Mhm.
That made me think of advanced healthcare directives, and maybe there's another form that people need to know about. Can you explain, or is that something that you deal with? And if so, can you explain to people why they need that?
If you have very strong feelings about your medical treatment, like you do not want to be on a ventilator, you do not want to have a feeding tube, or you do want to have a feeding tube, or you're agreeable to being on a ventilator, um, then you need to express these wishes in a document so that when you're not in a position to be able to talk about your own medical health, whether because it's the condition has you on a ventilator and so you can't speak, you're sedated, or because of the medical illness that you have, like a dementia or cognitive impairment, you're not able to verbalize your wishes. Then these documents are very important. But And we do help people complete them. We have various templates that they can work from, and we can give them other resources and direct them to other resources that can help them express even more fully how they want. You know, if X, Y, or Z is happening to me, then I do or don't want A, B, or C to happen. Um, we try to let people know, you know, if you call an ambulance, you are asking for emergency treatment. So they will come and they will do everything. They will do CPR. They will break your ribs doing CPR. They will do everything to try to revive you. Somebody
Mhm.
called for emergency services, they provide it. So if you're on the side of the road or on the floor, they're doing those things. Then they get you to the hospital. Now we've got technology and more things available where the family can make decisions about, okay, is the person going to revive? If we remove this, are they going to have another heart attack? If we do this, you know, can they have surgery to repair whatever? That's when you need that person to be stepping forward and evaluating that medical information with the interest, you know, the best interest of the person, right? We're not going to do, you know, in a very detailed, you know, we're not doing a heart transplant on a 90-year-old, you know, mother. You know, let's keep this person comfortable and keep, you know, whatever we can do that doesn't require extensive surgery, lengthy surgery, whatever. So you're going to be evaluating that. Now, if it's a 20-year-old who, you know, falls down in the soccer field, we're going to do everything, right? We want aggressive treatment because this was a healthy athlete prior to this incident. So there's a high likelihood of recovery, you know, based on age and ability to heal, as opposed to an older person who's suffering multiple system failures or problems. So, but you want somebody to be able to make that determination. They want to be able to say to the doctor, what is mom, dad, son's ability to recover? And if it's not good, then we want to be making the other decisions about palliative care, comfort measures, et cetera. So we do have that discussion. I'm not a doctor. I do have some experience in this area of seeing and making those end of life decisions for folks, including family members and individuals that I have personally been a guardian for. Um, and again, I just have to stand in their shoes and be like, would I want my life to continue if they were able to, you know, fix me? And in some such situations, it's not going to be possible. So, so it's a different area. It's very personal. I mean, you know, talking about money, that's real easy, you know. But you know, what if medical is a little more difficult. And, you know, Jean, you brought up, you said that, you know, this is a difficult conversation. I've had people say to me, you know, talking about this is real inconvenient. You know, I don't have time for that. And I said, well, that's real inconvenient too. You know, I mean, and if you haven't planned, you've made it real inconvenient for the next folks too. But also I try to make it it's a lighthearted experience. I almost think I have a dark humor, but you
We
know,
all
I
do.
don't I don't go around saying, you know, okay, so when you die, you know, blah blah blah. It's more like, okay, when zombies attack, okay, and one of you is now the zombie, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle the situation? Because, you know, we could say a zombie, when you have dementia, you're kind of like a zombie and you can't manage, but it makes it lighter for folks, and then it's more comfortable.
Mhm.
But a lot of times it's difficult. It's still difficult when you're talking about not being there to parent your children and raise them, or you know, or take care of things that you would like to, you know, have accomplished. Those thoughts do make people upset. So I try to be sensitive to that. Uh, we have a box of tissues in the office at all times.
Mhm.
So, but so I know I talk a lot. You got other things you're thinking about?
I mean, but there are so many things. I was making notes of a couple specific. Oh yeah, a couple specific things. Just following up from what we were just talking about, if somebody does not have those documents, advanced health care directive,
Hmm.
things like that, whether they want to stay,
Oh,
be resuscitated, etc. If you don't have those in place, then what happens?
so
If
again, the
something
law,
happens to you, like you can't breathe, yeah.
right. Well, you're going to get treated, you know,
Well, yeah.
if the, you know, some accident happens, EMTs come, they take you, the hospital's going to treat you. And they're going to get you to a stabilized point. And then the question may be, well, who can speak now for the person? So do we have documents? Okay, there we go. We've got it all laid out. But if we don't have documents, then doctors know under our healthcare code for Virginia, there is a prescribed order in which folks can speak for you. So first would be your spouse. Then it would be your parents if you don't have a spouse. Then it's your adult children. And then it's guardian. So if you don't have any of that, then and my siblings might be in there, but
Mhm.
then it's a guardian. So then again, the court would appoint somebody. It's also a situation that if you die at the hospital and the hospital does not know who your next of kin is, they contact the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office investigates and tries to find your next of kin. And if they are unsuccessful, but know that you have assets, the sheriff's, well, they still, even if you don't have assets, the sheriff's office will go to court and get permission to take custody of your body. And they will, if they cannot find anybody, they will cremate the body. And they have periodic ceremonies in which they inter those remains in a local cemetery. If you're military, if they find out you're military, they will work with Quantico to have you interred in Quantico. That's if you're here in this area. Um, so they have a person dedicated to doing that in the sheriff's office, and they are very diligent and responsible about that. If the person turns out to have had assets, then the sheriff's office often reaches out to our office, and we get appointed over the monies until we can find out who we give the monies to. So we would safeguard the individual's assets and then distribute it to the family after we've found out any debts and paid those. So there are systems in place to cover this, and of course, it's always you know, wish that weren't the case, but if it is the case, then we do have some good folks that are like the sheriff's office that takes responsibility for things like that. And when you don't have somebody and they are going to court to ask somebody to be the guardian for somebody, there are a number of attorneys in Virginia who will serve as guardian for individuals to like discharge them from the hospital and admit them into a facility. And oftentimes we do this pro bono because there's no money to pay us to do anything except to be, a companion or friend to these people and help them through those bad transitions in their life. But um, there are a number of folks that, we get calls from other attorneys saying, can you take this on?
Mhm.
And there are some firms even that's what they did entirely, was serve as guardian and conservator for individuals or powers of attorney, executors, et cetera. So um, it can be a difficult practice to
Mhm.
make any money at, but some of it is we have to give back. We've been blessed to be able to do things, and we have to give back to others. So I live by that motto. Um, there was something else I was thinking about when you mentioned that, and now I forgot. But oh, also, Jean, you might not know this, but if you have individuals who are going to be incarcerated and they don't have somebody to protect their assets when they're on the outside, we can go to the jail and get them to sign powers of attorney to nominate individuals. I've done that many times. Um, but you probably go to the jail on a regular basis. It becomes a very like, what times can we go? How do I get one-on-one with the person? I mean, it's all, don't bring staples, don't bring paper clips,
Yeah.
but but some people don't have anybody even to manage their monies.
Yeah.
And we have a special term for that, and it's spelt like committee, but it's French, so it's comité.
Mhm.
And so I actually serve as committee for an individual who's incarcerated for a number of years. It's not a bad job because they don't ask me for any money, because when they get out, they want to have their money. So they've been not taking any money from, but I could, be pushing money to their fund at the facility, their commissary, or whatever it's called. Yeah, but we often need to do that. We have to go to court and get somebody appointed as committee over an individual who's incarcerated. So there's a lot of things. And when I'm talking about being a guardian, a conservator, a committee, sometimes a trustee. A lot of that I'm doing under supervision of the court.
Mhm.
So it's not just my good word, but my good word is supported by my doing it properly and being, getting a stamp of approval from what's called the Commissioner of Accounts.
Mhm.
So I have to report on the assets that I'm holding and how I've spent them, how I've paid taxes and their bills, et cetera, and have distributed to the beneficiaries. So this is done under a microscope. Um,
Mhm.
and also, I have to get what's called a bond. And this is like it's a fiduciary bond. It's not like a get out of jail bond like on your side, but instead it's a fiduciary bond. And again, that protects me and beneficiaries that I don't run off with their money or I don't mess up the administration of their estate. And then that's an insurance policy that would make somebody whole. That can't always be said to be the case. Unfortunately, parents sometimes take their kids' monies and those bonds have to pay out because one, it's difficult to get a child to sue their parent. Sometimes the parent is no longer with us to go after. Sometimes there's fighting between the parents. Mom did it, no, dad did it. Who did it. So there's, uh, let's just say there's a bit more evaluation when a parent is coming out in to be guardian of their children's monies, especially if there's any chance that this, if you got a parent, who's got a great government job and has a very nice salary, they're unlikely to be taking their kids' monies. But
Mhm.
if they have change of circumstance, then they might be dipping into it. Hey, I'm supposed to be raising this person. Why can't I use their money to do it? Um, and so that's another planning thing, because that's like, unfortunately, where we get, we'll have cases where mom and dad are divorced, dad dies, and again, life insurance, retirement accounts, maybe the parent's home gets sold, and we've got a minor child inheriting money, a lot of money. Sometimes mom doesn't even have a job. She's been a homemaker, stayed at home with the children prior to the divorce, or doesn't have a, a, a real stable job. Um, was getting child support from the husband or getting other things. Well, now they're going to get Social Security from their parent. That goes to the mother to raise the kid, the child. But the child might, be having $500,000 sitting in an account, or, hundreds of thousands of dollars that can't be used to raise the child. So that can be difficult. I serve as guardian for a lot of those accounts because a parent couldn't do it, couldn't qualify for that bond. And so I do that. And kid turns 18 and I give the child the money. And you know, that's how it should be. Whether they want to turn around and give mom or dad some money for thank you for everything you did, or reimburse you for things, that's up to the child. But they're now 18 and it's their money.
Mhm.
Um, but 18 can scare a lot of people. Like, what? My kid could get their money at 18? Well, if you didn't want that to happen because they're not quite a mature adult yet, then you need to do planning and hold that money up for them till, 25, whatever age you think. I had somebody who held it up till the kids were 50, whatever you think is best for your family. So, but that takes planning. Otherwise, the law says they get it at 18.
Mhm.
So we might have been responsible at 18, but can't say that for everybody, you
Yeah,
know.
well, I guarantee you I'm more responsible now than I was at 18, but at the
No, I don't
same
believe that. I don't believe that. All us lawyers were very disciplined. You must have been disciplined.
disciplined, yeah. But we all learn. Let's say I become wiser with age. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Andrea, I won't tell you the big milestone I'm about to reach
Uh,
in
36,
April.
huh?
Yeah, yep, 36. You were at my
Yeah.
birthday last year. Yeah, weren't you? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. This is a big one.
Oh, well, congrats. I just had mine this week, so
Well, happy birthday.
thank you.
But
Yeah.
I'm just going to interject one personal thing, and I want to get back to questions because I have a couple. But I'm probably an example of somebody that is I guess maybe it's probably very common that people don't intentionally not plan. I hate all those negatives. They just
Yeah.
don't think about it because they don't maybe they're not married, maybe they don't have a lot of assets, like maybe they think, oh, I'll get to it later. It's just not on their minds. Do you find that that's an
Right.
issue with a lot of people?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it can be, again, if the schedule that I talked to you about, like going to mom and, your sibling, your spouse, then your children, et cetera, all was fine for you, or going up to your parents is fine, then I tell them, don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself over this,
Hmm.
But if you start saying, oh no, that can't be because of X, Y, and Z, then, then let's do some planning. It's not, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be, difficult. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand this. If you're managing your own money, you probably have enough sense to understand what I'm going to be talking to you about.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, there are situations in which people think things are going to go a certain way, but they aren't. They aren't going to go a certain way because you have a child from another marriage that, yes, you probably intended to benefit, but you now with second wife and you have minor children. So that one's an adult, but you probably needed your assets to stay with the wife to raise the children. And now they're coming and saying, I don't even own the house because it was in my husband's name. And now he died. And, that kid's not helping me pay the mortgage. What am I supposed to do? And then I had a case where not only were there the older children from the first relationship and minor children in the second relationship, there was a disabled child in the older relationship, in the prior relationship. So who's going to speak for the disabled child? They can't waive their rights and interest in dad's estate. So I just, unfortunately, I scratched my head on those and just, this is the person who really needed to do planning.
Hmm.
This was the person who should not have passed without having done that. Um, and some things got done the way they did because of their own circumstances. Dad was only on the house because dad was the only one that had income. Dad was only on the mortgage because dad was the only one who had income. Didn't put it as husband and wife for the wife to inherit the house. But even if she inherited the house, she might be getting this problem if she can't pay the mortgage. So, I mean, there's other things too to think about, but a lot of times things get structured because you get told you have to do it this way by like the mortgage company or this or that, or your employer says, we're going to put this down, we're going to pay this out to so and so, and that's not what you want, right? Oh, this is the worst situation. The hard one is when you divorce, technically the law says that divorce uh, shuts off your spouse being your executor, your trustee, your power of attorney, and your beneficiary. So, and if you never change your will, we would look at your will and we would kind of line out, okay, I leave everything to my husband, but that's not my husband. So I line that out and I go to that one, deceased. But the problem comes up, we can address it with those sort of situations, but the problem comes up when you've left that spouse as the beneficiary on your like work policy or on a private life insurance policy. So now all of a sudden you've passed and the second spouse is not getting that policy. It's going to, or maybe you changed it away from your spouse and you put in a child and now you've remarried and all that money's going to the child and not to the second spouse.
Hmm.
So that's another thing that, you have to always be checking who your beneficiaries are. And as your circumstances change your beneficiaries.
Yeah,
Beneficiaries.
I
Mhm.
made a note about that. Like, what happens if you have documents and have a will, but then things change? Like you've got everything in line the way that it's supposed to be, but then you get divorced, right? Or
Right,
or you leave stuff to your children, but then you end up having more children with a new wife,
right.
or even with the same. So I mean, what do you do if the person doesn't update those documents? Like they have documents, but they're not updated to reflect the situation that they're in when they pass.
Well, we have ways of putting in afterborn children. The
Okay.
law will provide for afterborn children. But the beneficiary one is the one that's more difficult.
Okay.
Especially if you divorced and things were not addressed in a property settlement agreement. So if, for instance, you said you were going to divide up your 401k, but then you died before you did that, then this becomes a problem and it becomes just more hurdles we have to go through. But the life insurance one is can be problematic because the life insurance, some life insurance policies, they're not going to investigate whether this is the second spouse that then was divorced. They're gonna pay out to the named beneficiaries. And you're gonna have to either sue the insurance company quickly before they do that and try to get that undone and get it to the second spouse, or do, make enough trouble with the insurance company that they pay it into the court and tell the court, you figure out who's the beneficiary of this money. We're out of it,
Mhm.
um, some, like the government does do an aggressive job when you are claiming for benefits, when you're dealing with OPM. They send you a very detailed paperwork and like, who's your first spouse? Give us, the death certificate or the property settlement agreement and the divorce decree, who's the next spouse? And they ask for all this paperwork, which again can become a problem because the second spouse might not have that. They're like, I've been married for 25 years. Why did I think I needed, the paperwork from the person he married, at 18 and divorced but before they were, 30 years old. And we've been,
Oh, it looks like we lost Andrea. I'm going to give her another minute to come back on. Well, for anybody that's out there watching this still, if you have any questions, type them in the chat. If we get Andrea back, we'll ask her. I plan on asking about funeral arrangements and things like that and what documents would provide for that. I don't know if I'm talking to anybody out there right now, but I'm just going to talk until we get Andrea back. So if anybody's watching, type something in the comments. We can have a conversation. I'm going to text Andrea now. I'm still here. Here she is. Okay, I just kept talking.
I know you did. So what I was saying is, if you have the situation where you have the divorce that happened, in the 80s, if you can find out where that divorce happened, oftentimes you can reach out to that court and the court can get a copy of that and send it to you. There might be a small fee associated with it, but sometimes you don't even know that information. You don't know where they lived, what county it might have been. And so that, again, you got to be a little bit of a sleuth to find that information. If, your spouse didn't keep that information, but you can find that and then provide it and hopefully get that benefits coming to you that you're entitled to. So, but it's an added complication.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you should never get really rid of legal papers, things like that. Keep them even if you think they're long gone, um, can be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So death certificates, if you get extra copies of death certificates, just put them somewhere. You never know when you might need it. So,
Yeah.
things like that, don't just trash them.
Yeah.
Unless everybody's gone. We don't need that anymore. But,
Mm-hmm.
um, what else? We do use genealogical firms to help us find heirs. We have to do a lot of sleuthing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes for weird things like property that nobody ever knew anybody owned. And all of a sudden, how do we find the heirs that, the county is going to take this property for unpaid taxes? How do we figure out the heirs? Well, the court will appoint a guardian ad litem, and that person will hopefully do some research to find those heirs and see if they want to recover that property. So there's a lot of oddities that come up,
Mm-hmm.
but they're provided for in the law. We have a lot of, you know, they're big law books.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, there
More
are.
questions?
I just had one more question, unless there's anything else you want to address. But this didn't come up earlier. What about funeral arrangements? Now, this can be very important to people, for religious and various other reasons. Is there
Yeah.
any way to put that in writing? You want to be buried in a Catholic cemetery, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, now having the funeral directors, their association, getting together and getting the General Assembly to give them laws that allow for somebody to make those arrangements for them. So if say you're very faithful, but your children aren't, and
Hmm.
you're not sure they will respect your wishes, so you want to name somebody else to do that for you. That would be perfect. You can name somebody, and that power of attorney will not die with you, but will continue for that purpose. Uh, but other than that, I mean, you can pre-plan. You can go over to the Pierce Funeral Home, Baker Post, any of our local funeral homes, and you can do pre-planning. You can prepay for your funeral. You can buy your cemetery plots. You can have all that information available for your family. But there still needs to be somebody that makes those arrangements because obviously you're now gone. So, if it's burial, it's easier because it's the family can step up and do it, provided they respect your wishes. But if it's cremation, you honestly need to have somebody who signs a piece of paper that says they authorize cremation and they verify that that is you, and then they allow them to cremate your body. So I often, if you don't have family members, I have you do one of those limited powers of attorney for final wishes or funeral needs, and naming somebody to do that. Um, but pre-planning makes things a lot easier, but it doesn't solve everything. I have a lot of people say, "Oh, it's all pre-planned." I'm like, "That's great, but we still need somebody because they need to enact it, right? To take it that last step now that you've passed."
Hmm.
And so we use that power of attorney. Now, I give you a book to which you can organize all your information, where your accounts are, your bills, et cetera. And I have a section in there if you want to put notations about your funeral wishes, including what songs you want played,
Oh,
so you can get as detailed. Now, if you wanted to go even beyond more than I wrote in that book, you can always write up your own piece of paper and put it in the book or put it with your papers, give it to the trusted person. I had somebody who actually put the sheet music in their book, you know, because this is the songs I want played, and actually put the music in there. So whatever it takes. Again, the DD 214 for veterans, that's an important piece of paper. I have some people say, "Oh, I don't need to worry about that because like dad already died." Well, you know what? They ask for it all over again when mom dies. Mom can be buried with dad. Dad was the veteran, let's say. Mom could be buried with dad. And they're going to ask for it all over again. So, again, what's the harm in having a backup copy put with the important papers so that, I mean, maybe you've moved mom. Maybe, you got buried out of Pierce, but now you've moved mom to Maryland with you and you're taking her to a different funeral home and they don't have that paperwork. you know, they might, do we trust that Quantico or Arlington still has it? Um, just have it. Just back, planning, 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 right? Um, that also brings up Arlington is getting filled up. We have a lot of veterans in our community. If you think that you're qualified for Arlington, you need to make inquiry with Arlington right now. You go on their website, just Google Arlington National Cemetery, and you will find there's a form there which you can submit. So if you are of a certain rank, uh, in particular, and maybe war, active duty, or yeah, killed in duty, killed in action, etc., they will make a determination about your eligibility. They are asking people to make these predeterminations, to give them the information to make the predeterminations, so they can tell people that they're not going to be qualified for Arlington. And so that they can then feel comfort, give the family comfort to pick another cemetery, whether you're going to go to Culpeper or Shenandoah, or we've got Quantico in our backyard, or one of the ones in Maryland or elsewhere, any national cemetery. Arlington is run by the Department of Defense. The other cemeteries are run by the Department of Veterans Affairs. The Veterans Affairs get you buried a lot quicker than the Department of Defense. So if you are going to Arlington, your family needs to be ready for a long wait. It can be up to a year if you're a low-ranking individual. They got to put the full bird colonels and the other ranks in first. And if you're the spouse, you're not a priority unless you are of a very high-ranking individual. So sometimes you're waiting months at the funeral home or on a shelf to be interred. The But if your family does not want to go through that, it does not feel indignity, in being in a national cemetery, then you can be buried quite quickly at one of the ones run by the Veterans Affairs. So just know that. But do know, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm eligible for Arlington," and it's like, you know what? Have you done the pre-qualification? Just do it. You know. Um, so there's just no more space. They can't buy any more land. It's already taken
Yeah.
up with other stuff, right? So the they know there's a infinite number of folks, or it's not infinite, it's finite, is what I was saying. Okay. Anything else?
I'm glad that
Oh,
you got.
oh, you can buy cemetery plots off Facebook Marketplace. If you know you want to go to a particular cemetery, you could buy a plot off Facebook Cemetery. I mean, Facebook Marketplace. There's also another site. I can't remember the name of it. I have bought cemetery plots from people off Facebook. So, it's a lot cheaper. People trying to get rid of them because now mom and dad's moved elsewhere, maybe to Florida, and they're not coming back to Stonewall to be buried in Stonewall or Arlington. I mean, Fairfax Memorial or one of them. So that's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, I never would have thought that.
Yep. Yeah.
But
So
I'm glad that you mentioned that about Arlington because totally makes sense. But I never would have even thought about that. So I hope somebody that needed to hear that hears it or hears it in the
yeah,
replay.
yeah. I mean, I can't help with any of that stuff, but at
Yeah,
least if your family knows to do that, they
yeah.
can start that process or yeah. So
Well, we've been going for an hour, and you talked
yeah,
about some very important things. I mean, is there? I could talk for hours about this stuff because I like law stuff. But is
yeah.
there anything else that you want that people need to know, or maybe based on your experience that people don't know that they should, or just anything that you want to like leave us with, but like make sure that we all hear?
Just the takeaway that at a minimum have powers of attorney. Financial, medical. The financial is often called the durable general power of attorney or general durable power of attorney. It's all the same, but that handles your financial affairs. Sometimes it includes medical provision. Some attorneys put the medical in that, but I put it as a separate document. And so those are just two basics that every individual should have. If you have any assets, you should have powers of attorney. If you have health, you should have power of attorney. Of course, you're alive. You should have power of attorney for health. Um, the will, the trust, if you never get around to doing them, so be it. We'll figure it out. But while you're alive, there's a lot of stuff we might have to do if you don't do that planning for very simple things.
Hmm.
Okay. Sorry, I keep getting a tickle. I do have to head off. Excuse me. So I need to wrap up with you, but this has been fun. Apologize. I talk too much.
No,
Um,
you don't talk too
but
much. It was
I
all
got
valuable, important information.
like I said, I got a lot of stuff, a lot of balls in the air to handle on different things.
Yeah.
So you come to the person who knows how to handle those things. And I hope that I'm not the only lawyer at my firm who does this. So if you reach out to us and you don't aren't able to get an appointment with me, I have an associate named Sherry. She is a duplicate of me. She's just as competent and capable. So please don't have any fear about using her. Or reach out to other folks.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, other folks are named on different things. As long as you're going to somebody,
Mhm.
you're getting the planning done. That's important. Doesn't all have to be done with me. I can't serve every person in the world. So,
Mhm.
um, but if you do come to me, I appreciate it, and I like to send my referrals to Jean for folks who ask me, what do I do about my little traffic or my protective order or other situation.
Mhm.
And so hopefully Jean sends folks to me and that's fine, or to other folks, but as long as she knows, she's now got the info, she knows to send folks to
I've
somebody.
already known Andrea, and I've already been sending folks. And I will tell you, my Facebook Live that'll podcast here it's an invite only thing. So I only ask people to come on that I do truly
Oh,
respect. And I mean, all joking aside, I do truly respect you and think you're a great attorney. And I
mm.
do refer people to you because you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've been trying to do this for a long time, Jean.
It's been
I've,
a long time.
I've
Yeah.
been bumped
Yeah.
down your list for a while, so I'm glad we got to finally do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, this was
so
valuable information. Thank you,
yeah,
Andrea, for your time. You're a super
thank
busy
you.
lady with everything that you do.
Oh,
And thank
thanks.
you,
Thanks for
everybody.
inviting me.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. And if you come across this later and you have a question about something, you can type it in the comments, and we'll get notified. And I'm sure Andrea will
Okay,
be able to answer your question or point you in
absolutely.
the right direction. But Andrea, like I said, I'm going to end the live here, and you and I will still be here, but I know we both got to go. But thank you, everybody, so much for watching. I truly do appreciate the time. And this was one of my longest lives ever, but it feels like it was 5 minutes because it was so extremely helpful. Like, people
Uh,
really need to know this. So thank you, everybody. Bye.
I